Hello everyone, good afternoon. Welcome to our next webinar session at Swiss Cyber Institute. And today we will talk about cybersecurity and AI. And I'm very happy to have all of you here with us, and we are excited to see a lot of registration for this event to learn about a critical and timely topic, as well as all we know that the world of cybersecurity and artificial intelligence are evolving very fast, and their intersection is creating powerful opportunities and some unique challenges, of course. Today's discussion is centered around how cybersecurity plays an essential role in the fast developing area of the AI, particularly in generative AI, and how AI can enhance our cybersecurity capacity to better protect our organizations and data. With AI transforming the cybersecurity landscape, it's also important for us to understand both risks and opportunities it brings. I am very happy to have two exceptional experts from Ernst & Young EY Switzerland with us today, who will provide their insights and practical guidance on this topic. Roman Haltinner, the cybersecurity leader for Europe West, who brings extensive experience in driving cybersecurity strategies across diverse sectors. And then we have Tom Schmidt, cybersecurity leader from financial sector. Tom and Roman are the partners at EY, and Tom has also hands-on experience with the unique challenges and innovation in cybersecurity for financial sector and beyond. Today, Tom and Roman will tackle some of the most important questions around AI in cybersecurity. And we will discuss practical applications, we will discuss industry best practices, and some real-world impacts that AI already having for us for the business. So I would like to encourage you to engage with us. All of you, please use the Q&A button on the bottom of the windows and send me your question, and I will be very happy to read all of your questions to Roman and Tom. This is a unique opportunity for you to engage with us, and this session is recorded, and we will share the recording later on with all of you. So thanks again for joining us, and let's start our discussion: cyber for AI and AI for cyber. Tom and Roman, you are our partner as well at the Global Cyber Conference. You are our headline partner, main partner, and you are also presenting partner for CISO Awards. I would like to give the stage for a couple of minutes to introduce yourself, what you are doing at EY, and then I will start with my questions for the topic of the webinar today. Shall we start with Roman first? I see your video in front of me.
Okay, good morning all, and happy to be part of this webinar this morning and talking about AI. And yes, you can imagine and also see, based on the participation we have here in the call, so this is a very interesting topic, and everybody is thinking of how I can use AI in the future, how I can use AI to my advantages in the business, but also when we think out of cybersecurity, how I can protect my environment. I have done this so far using this new technology, using all the new advantages we have in the business. So as I said, my name, Roman Haltinner, heading cybersecurity Europe West in Switzerland. I'm more than 25 years in that business. Basically, I'm coming out of IT, and this is always a topic I really like also to see how new things coming on the market, how they will be implementing in a way in an organization, and how they're driving also the innovation for the business for our customer. And also beside that, I'm thinking how we can protect this business sustainable, and also what kind of needs, very practical needs, should be in place to get all these controls which are needed in place. And with that, I would also hand over to Tom to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Roman.
Thank you very much, Roman. My name is Tom Schmidt. I'm leading the financial services organization part of cybersecurity in Switzerland. Like Roman, already more than 25 years in the IT security, information security, cybersecurity space, part of the European leadership as well at the EY for cybersecurity. I'm particularly interested in that topic because I definitely see three dimensions that are relevant from a cybersecurity perspective when we talk about AI and Gen AI. Two of those are mainly what is in the title, so AI for cybersecurity or cybersecurity for AI, which is particularly important for all the companies that are starting now to implement AI and Gen AI, be it for their own employees or also in the client interface. But especially when we are also talking about AI for cybersecurity, we have even two dimensions there that I'm really interested in. One is cybersecurity from an attacker's perspective. So what do the attackers nowadays with the help of Gen AI especially? And what are the companies doing from a cybersecurity defender's perspective? So how they are using AI already for quite a while, but especially also now the new opportunities and possibilities with Gen AI when it's about defending against cyber attacks. So I'm very happy to be part of today's discussion round and really looking forward for all the questions that are coming along. Back to you, Samir.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks. Since you are here in front of me in the camera, I would like to start with you. And today, many organizations, they just start to implement a lot of AI tools, with or without knowing all this risk and the security challenges. So also the AI tools into the cybersecurity strategy. What are the first practical steps, 1, 2, 3, 4 practical steps that those companies should take into consideration to ensure that smooth integration of the AIs in their cybersecurity strategy? Not just use the ChatGPT, but integrating AI to the cybersecurity strategies.
Thanks, Samir. And I definitely agree. We see more and more new tools coming up, but also existing tools that are offering some AI elements newly to the product suite. And as we used to say already in the past, right, a fool with a tool is still a fool. So really understand what are the new features, how can you implement that in the existing tool suite. And what we have faced for a couple of years already, that a lot of companies have bought many different cybersecurity tools in the market, and they might already be rather overwhelming, and it's rather the question of consolidating those existing tools in a couple of few ones that really serve the need that you have as a company to be better equipped against cyber attacks. So I think it's wise to see what tools do I already have in place, where do I need to consolidate, and which of the tools I want to use going forward are offering also AI features. Maybe already right now or rather soon in the future, and to understand what exactly is that offering. And it's better to concentrate on a couple of tools and not just to expand the overall tool suite again, that you're ending up with many different tools you are not able really to handle and just using to a certain extent. If you're using in an environment also cloud with service providers, other tools you need to connect to, it's also important to understand the APIs that are there from new tools. How can they integrate and exchange information with other existing tools? Only if you have access at the end to the overall information from all the tools you're using, you really can make most use of AI features as well, especially in the Gen AI environment, when you try to figure out what's going on and try to bake in all the information you have available to analyze that also with AI capabilities. That would be my advice.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Thanks. That's a good starting point. Then I would like to ask my second question to Roman. Roman, today we have a traditional methods to identify and mitigate cyber threats. And now many third-party software providers or cybersecurity service providers, they explain that they have now AI integration and that AI tools can successfully identify and mitigate cyber threats more effectively than traditional methods. Do you have some real-world examples, or do you believe that AI will really help us to be more agile, to identify quicker and mitigate the stuff, all the cyber threats easier?
Absolutely, and I think it's also clear. And when you have done in the security world many years ago, when we started to protecting our network, we were starting with tools and technology called IDS. And as an example, where we want to understand a little bit more about anomalies detection in a network. I think that's a pretty good practical example how you can see how tools developing in the right way and helping us to identify intruders and all other anomalies very quickly. And that's one of the significant steps artificial intelligence will help us in the near future. And yeah, based on that, you see also in the development of current tools today, I would not name them, but there are some of them out on the market. They're starting to implementing more and more AI features, AI-based technology, which is helping us definitely when it goes in the way when we have to analyze a network, when we have to analyze a lot of data, and when we have to analyze something which need more statistically view on a topic than we are used to have in the past. And definitely based on your question, I think and I believe that the AI will help a lot in terms of these topics I mentioned before.
Once we start to use the AI, do you think that we need also proper knowledge that first we have to train our technical team, train our C-suite that they understand which kind of AI tool we buy? Because you might invest the technology, you might bring to the organization, but if the people have no idea how to use them, then that will be another challenge, right?
That's correct. Yeah, I fully agree with what you're saying. And yes, it's still the same when you buy new technology and implement new technology. You need to understand your current capabilities, where you stand today, and also have a clear strategy or view what you would like to protect with this kind of technology. And this always brings with you that you have to use the right technology, buy it, to support your clear objective, what you would like to protect, and then also finding in that sense the right use case. It's something which is not going in the direction of a business when you have a kind of business use case for AI. It's also in terms of security that you find the right case, which it's the more effective what you will get out of using such a kind of technology. And don't forget, if you implement this technology in security, you also have to train or you have to skill up your people around you that you'll be able to use this technology in the right way to get out the effectiveness you want to have with.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Roman. Tom, my question is to you. Now we talk about technology, we talk about decision-making to select third-party service providers. What are the other key elements in successful implementation AI in cybersecurity? Like, do we need really regulations, all the standards or best practice, or some other stuff that we need to have in mind before we go to this direction?
Yeah, there are definitely several elements that are relevant from that perspective. So as a lot of providers, be it service providers or also tool providers, obviously are keen to marketing also their capabilities with artificial intelligence, you really need to understand what exactly is the current state. So do they promise what the tools are currently doing? So just to make sure that there is no bad surprise at the end if you have selected something which is not really fulfilling the purpose you want to use it for. But also some challenges around what you are really allowed to do, especially if you do it on your own. There is more and more regulation coming up from the artificial intelligence side, especially in the EU, but also swapping over to Switzerland. And therefore, it's good to understand in what category is this activity falling from a regulations perspective. Because depending on how far you're going, you might end up in a situation you are not allowed to do as soon as regulation comes into force going forward. And therefore, you really need to be aware of that as well. I have already talked about consolidation of tool landscape and how the strategic outlook should look like when using the tools going forward. So it really needs to fit in your overall setup, be it from a service provider's perspective or from a tool provider perspective. And if you really are following those guidelines, then you should be fine also to tackle the challenges that might come along with going into that direction. But I think it needs to be a careful thought, good consideration, and also some due diligence work before you are just digging in. Because it's really popping up everywhere that tools are now AI enabled or that AI enabled services are coming out, but we are still early stage from that perspective.
Yeah, thanks, Tom, for the feedback. I believe 2 weeks ago, you shared in a LinkedIn a video from the EY that the EU AI Act will come into force, we know it, and Article 4 is all about AI literacy, that any company or organization that they develop, deploy, and use AI, they must give AI training. That's, of course, applicable to the companies that they are established in EU member states. How that will be affect also Swiss organizations that they are operating in EU or they are developing the tools and selling it to the EU companies or countries. What's your perspective? This is kind of question that came to my mind and I would like to learn from your perspective.
Yeah. So as with several acts that are coming out in the EU space just recently, you can also take DORA as an example here. Swiss companies will be impacted by that as soon as they are serving EU inhabitants or are on the EU market with their services as well, right? And even if you are not immediately impacted with the EU AI Act, it's just a question of time until similar regulation is then coming to Switzerland and mandatory for all the players in the Swiss market. And EU AI Act, and that's important to understand, is doing a risk classification of the AI activities and tools that are used at the companies. And you can have from minimized risk to limited risk to high risk and to unacceptable risk. And therefore, it is important to understand what is still okay if it's high risk, but which activities and precautions you need to take, and what are the requirements that you need to follow to have that high risk artificial intelligence services that you're providing. And when you are swapping into the unacceptable risk, and unacceptable means you are not allowed to do it, basically in the EU. And if you are already starting with some activities that fall in the unacceptable risk, then at least as soon as this is put into force, you need to stop those activities. And therefore, you need to be aware before you are taking now that journey in the AI space, basically.
Is there any risk assessment tool to assess all those risk levels of the AI tools, or any company can develop their own assessment tool?
Of course, there will come up several assessment tools. It's based on the law, as it is indicated there. but some guidance with some assessment tools are definitely out there and currently worked on as well to get that perspective and to be able to, as quickly as possible, to do a first assessment in which risk classification you are falling with your activities, right? That's from the external risk assessment companies and consulting companies, they are definitely able to help when it's about assessing that with tools and questionnaires.
Yes. Thanks a lot, Tom, for the insightful feedback. I would like to come back to Roman. Roman, now AI systems themselves can be also vulnerable to cyber attacks that we see also time to time. Those AI or blockchain system, we hear from media that it's hacked. What are the best practices for securing AI models, particularly generative models in a cooperative environment? Because many organizations now, they start to develop their own cheap GPT, and that might be vulnerable. And what's your advice about what are the best practices that companies should take into consideration?
Yeah, it's a very good question, Samir, and many of our clients asking the same question when they're starting their journey in artificial intelligence. And I would like to go a little bit broader to think about what exactly changes. And also Tom mentioned, okay, there is a regulation helping us to get the boundaries, a framework where we can control this kind of development in an organization, processes, and maybe also some technology. But also here, in terms of regulation, we are on a very early stage. So when I have a look back about the EU AI regulations, they're coming in more or less on the same time when we get the possibility to use AI in a very personal way with ChatGPT and some else. So we are more or less regulated at the same time where we're trying out this technology, and therefore it's clear there will be a lot of changes coming in. And also when we think about how we can protect our AI tools and AI applications, it's something you have to understand before and should be very clear. So if you grow up with IT, you learned a formula for many years that you have an input in a computer, then you compute something based on rules, and the output was more or less something you can expect. This has in this world now with AI completely changed, or is changing now completely. So you have many sources, many data you can get in as an input, then you calculate or compute with your computer power, which is also to take in account. Talking here about a drastical difference to our former times when we talk about computing, not anymore on regulations or anymore about a way which we can expect what will be the outcome. So we have to trust on something we are never used to trust. I think that's the basic issue about that, and therefore you have to think how you can protect in a way all these things around this process, which helps us to get a protected area where you're also running your AI infrastructure in that sense. And of course, starting with data protection based on exactly now, you know what kind of data you should use. All this data you're using for your infrastructure is needed with kind of data encryption technology we have in place. And of course, access control. That's something you can use it very quickly, but it's also something we are used to use. And then we do also regular testing about that, how proper and secured AI systems are in a normal environment. And then, of course, it's always the kind of discussion about the model behind it. And the model is it's the element I mentioned. We don't know exactly what it's doing in that sense. Program is now replaced by a model, more or less, very simple say in that topic, and explaining how you can also save or safeguard this kind of infrastructure piece you have in your organization. That's also something which is very important, that you can have methodologies and also capabilities in place for helping you to protect the models as such, and also when the model will be deployed, all these kind of processes, as we also know from the so-called pure development processes in IT, that these are stable and secured. And of course, also as a fourth element, there are a couple more. Important is also here to have monitoring and logging in place, which helps you also to get transparency what's going on around your AI systems.
Thanks, Roman. Before I go to my next question, most probably to you, I would like to remind our audience that please use Q&A button or chat button to send your questions to Tom and Roman. We have already more than 10 questions, but I will be very happy to read all of them last 15 minutes. Roman,
Samir, before going to the next question you are going to ask, so I really would like to stress, you asked about vulnerability of such AI systems with all the aspects Roman has mentioned, but I really would like to stress it's not just about vulnerability. It's really understanding, even if it's a standard functionality, and Roman said it, access control is of utmost importance here. Even if you have a model that you are rolling out within your company, be it the 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗍, for example, and that happened to many organizations, that suddenly the employees were shown data they didn't know they have access to. Because 𝗀𝗵𝗿𝗍 is accessing everything you have formally access to, even if you are not aware that you have access to. And that's popping up information in a company which maybe you don't want that everyone is seeing that information. And that's quite often a lack as well, that proper access management is just not implemented. So far, it wasn't that harmful because people didn't figure out that they have access to specific information. But with AI and Gen AI, that's completely changing, basically. So that's an important aspect. You don't need even to go to the vulnerability question. Even standard functionality might cause some data confidentiality issues at the end.
Yeah, thanks a lot for the additional feedback, Tom. That's also important point, I believe, the access management, access control. Companies should know who has an access to data on the backend. That's a very, very important question, and also legal and ethical perspective of this access. If the company has the responsibility later on, if they are compliant with those, the management, operational and technical standards. The next question about small and medium-sized companies, enterprise in Switzerland. They are one of the main driver of the Swiss economy, and of course they have to also be on the same line with the big giants, that they have enough budget to invest AI tools for their cybersecurity. From your perspective, Tom, do you think that the AI-driven cybersecurity tools or solutions are cost-effective or are accessible, scalable to those SMEs in Switzerland that they have limited budget? From your perspective, how do you see those pricing strategy, or let's say the value for the SMEs?
That's probably a bit twofold, Samir, as many AI-related activities and tools go along with a process. So let's take a security operations center, for example. So the question is, do we really want to run that as a SME yourself, or is that something you are outsourcing to a managed security service provider at the end? So all the AI that is used in connection with such a service definitely depends where the service is run. Is it in-house or is it outsourced? If it's outsourced, then probably also the AI aspects are outsourced and taken care of a third party, and you don't really need to invest yourself in such tools. Obviously, if you have a dedicated cybersecurity team that is interested in AI and wants to make use of AI tools that are around, there is always the possibility also to start with the many open source tools that are available. You'll find a lot of them also on GitHub, for example, where you can freely use them, get an understanding of how attackers are using the tool, but you also can use them from an ethical hacking, pen testing, or defender's perspective. So there's, for example, an offensive AI compilation available on GitHub where you have a lot of tools linked to that GitHub environment where you can download and play around, and you don't pay anything for that. So I think it really depends to what extent you have enough know-how and also manpower in-house to take care of yourself from a cyber perspective with AI, and to what extent that is part of the offering you are buying anyway from some managed security service provider. But there is definitely an option to get first-hand experience to such tools without taking into your hands a lot of money, if you really want to deep dive there.
Thanks, Tom. Let's say we bought a technology. Sorry. We bought a technology, and now we need also to have certain skills and competencies for our professionals who wants to work with those AI models, AI systems. What are the best practices the organization can upskill their teams? Tom or Roman?
Yeah, I think I can answer this question. And going back to Tom's explanation, and he was also talking about, should a small organization run all this kind of technology by themselves, or is it something which can be outsourced? I think that was the basic question about that. For SME, I think it's clear, and that it's also basically something what we see when we're talking to our clients. We're talking here about mid-sized to larger organization. They're struggling with this topic AI in terms of, do we or should we build also internal know-how about that? At this time, I would say it's nice to have it, because with Copilot and also boosted by many of these tool providers, it's something you would like to do and you would like to test, you make your experience. But when it goes in the direction to use AI more operational, more in core processes, that's then a topic different story. And when we talk about important skills and competencies, of course, someone who has needs an understanding of AI in general, and of course machine learning if you do it by yourself. And this also is by nature something you will very hardly find on the market. Can you ask someone on the market who has this capability, has done this many years and bringing in all the latest knowledge you need? It's a different story also here. And also when it comes in a combination, understanding AI, machine learning more from the innovation part, it's also something then interesting to combine this with the security, data privacy knowledge. So it's also something you have to bring together if you would like to have this knowledge in-house and helping you to run artificial intelligence successfully and secure. And of course, it goes also in the direction of secure coding. And as you also know, people should have an understanding of application development. It's also something which is not very easy to get on the market. There's all these kind of conditions you have to take in account if you then have to start this kind of journey in terms of AI. When we talk about upscaling teams, so teams do you have available in your organization needs a lot of training and certification, and means also willingness of the organization to invest in their people, in the current people. And there's also a question in which area for your organization you will find them. So on the first impression you will have, if you're looking on an organization, and that's also something we're discussing with our client. You try to end up AI is something you have to put people from your IT in that topic, and which is not the case. We learned a lot also to combine this with business people who have an understanding about the processes. It's something which goes in the direction kind of application requirements coming together with IT development knowledge. It's something which is going back in a discussion what is needed to implement technology, implement application in your environment, to have the right skills also in your organization. And it's maybe also something different if you're running this kind of technology within an early stage. It needs also development of your people over the time. It's not done with 1 or 2 times a year training. It's a continuous improvement and learning of your organization.
Thanks a lot, Rom. And Tom, do you have any feedback? Any comment?
I think the relevant aspects have all been mentioned by Roman. Nothing to add from my side here.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Do you expect in the near future new regulation, new standards from Swiss government or Swiss authorities to regulate AI in cybersecurity, or just AI? Do you have any expectation or any knowledge on it?
So I think I have already talked a bit about that in an earlier question. So I expect that more and more is being seen in the Swiss market as well. There have already been some announcement also by the federal office that it goes in that direction. The starting point for sure is now the EU AI Act. And that's probably also the first one globally that is coming and putting into force. And that forms somehow the basis, as we are really close to the EU market anyway, where already some of our companies in Switzerland need to follow that, or will see similar development then also swapping to Switzerland. But it's still early stage from that perspective, but nothing in addition. So if you just look at the maybe that being said, just looking at the Swiss market right now, there is no specific regulation or law when it comes to artificial intelligence application. But obviously, you have existing laws that play a role here. I just would like to call out some of those. So data protection law we have in Switzerland is definitely relevant from a usage of AI perspective as well. Intellectual property, when you also think about the large language models, where is that data coming from? That is also used for training reasons. We see some lawsuits also in the US going on with media, where they are claiming that their data was used without any proper allowance to be used as an input factor for large language models. The competition law we have in Switzerland is playing a role in that. Liability, which is existing law in Switzerland. Financial market, if you are in the banking, insurance environment. Anti-discrimination. We have as well a law in Switzerland when we talk about bias, for example, of AI systems, Gen AI systems. So we have a lot of existing law that plays a role in AI, but no dedicated AI law currently. But you need to be aware of those different laws, otherwise you are quite soon somewhere in the gray area, which might fire back then sooner or later.
Thanks a lot, Tom. Roman?
Yeah, maybe to add to that, and I fully would agree what Tom is saying. In Switzerland, we are very liberal in such regulation topics, and we always looking for existing law which we have in place. So that's something the most of us in cybersecurity experienced over the past of years and decades. So this will be not a big change. We're always looking for something we have in place, and if it's needed, maybe it goes in the direction of a sectorization or something like that. So maybe I can imagine banking sector will be a little bit more to that topic to start to regulate. But in the end of the day, we have to, if we compare and with other countries or with the EU as such, we, as long as it goes, as long as it's not that much different to our existing law, there will be nothing coming in, or nothing will be developed in Switzerland by our own regulators.
That means that we shouldn't expect EU AI Act style law in Switzerland.
We will taking care about it, because we are also part of the EU. Not in that sense that we politically fully agree to the European Union, but the most of my clients, they're sitting also in the EU, they're sitting, or they're worldwide organized, so they are affected about the most of the laws on their markets. And it goes also in the same direction when we talk about, and also Tom mentioned it, about DORA, about NIS2, and so on. You need to sit down and to think about which of regulations your business will be affected in Switzerland, but also outside of Switzerland. And then it's then also time, I would say, to implement the right controls or processes to keep all this kind of regulatory compliance topics up to date, and also sustainable up to date.
Thanks a lot, Roman. I'm going to read some of the questions that we have already from auditorium, because we are going to the end of our event. The first question is coming from Charles. He's asking how much progress you have seen with AI being integrated into risk management frameworks. Let's take this question from Swiss perspective. Is there an integration that AI is integrated to risk management frameworks, reputational risks, operational risk, financial risks? Tricky question.
So maybe I can start. What I see at the clients, it's still, as we already said for other aspects as well, early stage, basically. Because most of the companies are currently thinking about use cases of using in the business, of using Gen AI in the business from a cybersecurity perspective. Obviously, as well, just to get an understanding what is the state of the art and how can we implement that in our environment. It should be part of operational risk management as soon as such elements are being used and included in the environment. And I'm quite sure, depending on the sector we are talking about, this will happen rather quickly. But if you see how long it took from a pure IT risk perspective, that this really has been part of the overall enterprise risk management and operational risk management, that also took a while. And some companies, I still see that they are managing that completely differently, being the classical enterprise risks and then the IT risks or cyber risks. And there is a certain risk that this might not be fully integrated and just handled differently or separately, which shouldn't be the case if you want to have an overarching risk management system in place in the company. But we are really early on, and that's not fully baked in for the time being, at least not with the clients I'm dealing and I have a closer view on.
Thanks a lot, Tom. We have a very interesting question actually right now. I'm going to read it for you and for our audience. Since the current stage of AI has not reached general intelligence yet, so current AI has only learned pattern about past cyber threats. How does the cyber AI tools or AI tools for cybersecurity handle new threats? There are unseen threats. So current AI tools are kind of trained with the available data, but there are new developed methods, new developed malwares, ransomwares by cyber criminals. Are we going to skip them or not to see them or not to manage them? Still, we need to keep maybe our traditional methods to mitigate their risks.
I think that's exactly one of the advantages of AI, that it is not pattern-based, right? So it's not really a learning of existing and known patterns. It's really coming out of anomalies. If you're taking the classical artificial intelligence, what Roman mentioned before already as well, and that was classical machine learning, artificial intelligence, not necessarily Gen AI. But if you want to take in Gen AI, for example, and just making it up as this is existing in the market and probably many clients are using to one or the other way, also some Microsoft stack. If you just have a look at the Copilot for security, which is then taking all the different sources into account when analyzing with your prompting what's going on in your environment, and not just based on Microsoft tools. You have APIs to many different tools that are considered in such an environment. That is a completely other way of identifying anomalies or something which doesn't look normal, let's call it like that. And which is obviously not just a pattern of knowledge from the past, but is analyzing the here and now, what's going on, and coming up then with a condensed version of explanation what is seen in your data. And I think that's the huge step forward compared to the traditional options and possibilities you have had when trying to identify what's going on. It's much more powerful just having a SIEM which is doing normalization of some traffic and then trying to monitor something out of that SIEM at the end.
It's a very good point Tom mentioned, and a very good explained. And with that, it's also something coming in place which we are also not used to deal in our days. I would say it's about false positive and false negative. So the outcome of a result of this anomaly detection could be in different way, and it's needed something also which is an additional intelligence to understand if this is something which is a risk or is it not a risk. And that's an element which I think I personally know from my practical exercises with such tools, but also learning from my clients needs also a lot of learning and training to get out the right result and also do the right things afterwards.
Great feedback. Thanks a lot, Roman and Tom. Another very concrete question: what capability maturity models would you recommend to evaluate enterprise cyber AI capabilities? Is there any models that you might advise, give some feedback?
Maybe Tom, you're more in the models in that sense.
I'm not sure if I have fully understood the question, but I try to give an answer based on my understanding. So if we do cyber for AI, it's always the question about trusted AI at the end. What you're doing in your company and offering that AI to your employees or to your clients in the client interface. And therefore, it's important to, if we take that from a risk model perspective, it's important to understand what type of AI are you using in the company, be it for your own employees or for the clients. On the one hand, because of regulations, as I've explained before, so in which risk category is this AI going, but also just to have the inventory of all the AI that is around. Then you need to assess the risks and performing basically impact assessment of that AI, what might go wrong and what are the risks that are going along with that. Then you need to establish roles, responsibilities, and accountability for the structure and the use of that AI. You need to develop policies, procedures, standards, guidelines for your employee that they know how to deal with that new technology. And you need to make sure that that goes also in if you are having some third parties contributing to that. So third-party risk management, cyber risk management, privacy risk management is important aspect of that. And then it's about the implementation of the AI solution and the monitoring, the ongoing monitoring what's going on. That's basically a little bit the risk framework if you're building AI and if you want to have some security aspects in AI. And obviously traditional activities like pen testing of a LLM, of a AI model, of an AI system you're using is absolutely necessary before you're going to put that into production then. Not sure if that really covers the question, but that was a bit my understanding about
that will help most probably. That will help to navigate those models. Another question is coming from Steen. Even if a business use no AI, the fact that attackers are using AI must be considered. Do you think that new AI threats are already addressed by existing controls from, for example, ISO 27000 and the NIST? Or do we need a new controls for some AI type of threats? And if yes, can you give some examples? Thank you.
Yes,
So,
Tom.
yeah.
Oh, go on, Tom.
No, it's fine, Roland. Just.
Yeah, as Tom mentioned before, I think it's a combination of controls you should have in place, and it's something you do, I think, today. Yes, of course, you can use the common framework like NIST, and also when it goes in the direction of pen testing, MITRE, and all these kind of things. I think basically it's the understanding, and Tom mentioned it also, that you have to do more in a technical way to understand what the system is doing and how you can penetrate it and how you can test it in general. I think that's the basic part, and which kind of framework you are using in that sense, it's secondary at the topic at this time. But I can imagine that we also have a couple of development in terms of control frameworks, adding controls. And by the way, our clients asking when we do some control framework revision or testing a control framework, AI controls coming into place.
And it's also important to understand if attackers are using AI or Gen AI, it doesn't mean that this looks completely different on the defender side. So what is AI doing and helping attackers for, basically? It's more automation, speeding up the attacks, enabling people that might not be that educated from an attacker's perspective to run attacks. So coding, for example, with the help of Gen AI, that you can run specific tools. You might not be able to do so without the help of Gen AI. So what Gen AI especially is influencing from an attacker side is that you have enlargement of possible threat actors, and that such attacks are much quicker and you see much more. So the magnitude of attacks is increasing heavily with the use of AI. But on the defender side, you might still see the same attack vectors and indicator of compromise. That's not necessarily completely different, but you see some other patterns you haven't seen in the past, right? If you just think about the CEO fraud implication, for example, it's not just a phishing email. You might get a voice injects, which is then rather the phishing voice or phishing video that is mimicking your colleague from a voice perspective, from a video perspective, and it's getting harder for the people to identify phishing activities. So these are new opportunities that are coming along, and therefore, even the more it is important the awareness aspects of the people, that they know what's going on, what's possible, what attackers are using, and how this might look like, that they are just mentally better prepared what might come along.
Yes. Good. We are coming to the end of our event. We have last couple of minutes, but we have more than 10 questions. Unfortunately, we will not able to read and answer all of them. But in case Roman and Tom, in case our attendees, they have further questions, can they reach out to you via LinkedIn or ask their question in the future if they have any specific question related to AI in cybersecurity or cybersecurity strategies?
Absolutely, they can do this, and also can meet us on the booth on the Global Cybersecurity Conference at Boulder. So we have a booth there, so we will stay there, and we will also happy to answer your questions or further questions and discussions about the topic. And by the way, we also have a presentation or a panel. A panel, I'm right, huh? With Tom and Natalia talking about AI.
Perfect, great. We are looking forward to have you there at the Boulder Grand Global Cyber Conference. Tom?
I just want to say, if you want to get some hands-on experience with some AI questions, cybersecurity, and what impact that might have on the workforce, then as Roman said, you can attend. It's rather a workshop, not really a panel. It's a workshop where you can do some hands-on exercises with Natalia and myself at the second day of the Global Cyber Conference in Boulder.
Perfect. Before I close the session, do you have any last suggest or advice or feedback or comment that future looked something that what we have to do in the future to be successful in this jungle of AI?
There is only one thing: stay in a situation that you know what's going on. So make sure that you train yourself what's going on, and also make sure that the people around you, especially in the company, get the awareness they need to know what's going on out there. It's fast moving, it's fast paced, it's not always easy, and therefore people who can give a steer on what's going on is of high value in the companies, that the knowledge is to the extent necessary there, also to be prepared for cyber attack or for using AI for the employees or the clients.
Thank you, Tom. And Roman?
Yeah, I think we are at the moment on a very interesting point of a very interesting journey. And as Tom said, it will be a fast, very fast journey, supported by a lot of computer power. And that's basically what makes AI fantastic, great, but also dangerous.
Yes, great and dangerous. That's a good word to close the event today. And I would like to thank you for your time. I know you are extremely busy. Thanks for sharing your knowledge, know-how with our audience today. And it was a great session to see you, to talk with you. I also learn each time from you because you are in the industry, you have hands-on experience, you work with diverse industry, diverse companies, diverse the background, and that gives a lot of power that we can always learn from your know-how and implement it in our business, day-to-day business. So therefore, thanks a lot, Tom and Roman. Thanks a lot, all of our attendees, for the questions. It was a great session with you, and let's keep in touch, stay in tune, and look forward to have you at the Global Cyber Conference in 1 month.
Thank you very much. See you soon.
Thanks a lot for having us. See you.
Bye.
Bye.